Here's a number that should keep you up tonight. The average American retires at 65, but the average number of healthy, active years after that, about 7. 7 years, not 30, not 25, 7. And that's if you're lucky. If you didn't wreck your knees, your back, your heart, your spirit getting to that finish line. I know this because I lived it. My name is Margaret. I'm 75 years old, and I spent 40 years of my life following what I now believe was the most dangerous piece of financial advice anyone ever gave me. Save now, sacrifice now, live later. I was the poster child for doing everything right. I maxed out my 401k every single year starting at 25. I watched compound interest do its beautiful, quiet magic. I clipped coupons, skipped vacations, worked weekends. I was the responsible one, the disciplined one, the woman at the office everyone admired because she had her numbers together. And you know what? My numbers were perfect. My life was not. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this because I'm 75 years old and I've earned the right to say what nobody told me when I was 30 or 40 or even 50. There is a wealth rule that is invisible. It doesn't show up on any balance sheet, any brokerage statement, any retirement calculator. And by the time you see it, you've already spent most of it. I want to share it with you today, not as a guru, not as a financial advisor, as a woman who learned it the hard way and is running out of time to pass it on. So if you have 10 minutes, stay with me, not because I need views, because I needed someone to say this to me 40 years ago, and nobody did. Maybe I can be that person for you. I kept a notebook, a small leather-bound notebook, dark brown, about the size of my hand. I bought it at a stationery shop in Boston the year I got my first real corporate job, 1976. I was 25, sharp, hungry, and absolutely convinced that the American dream had a formula. Work hard, save aggressively, retire at 65, live happily ever after. Every quarter, I would sit down at my kitchen table and write my 401k balance in that notebook. Every single quarter for 40 years. I can still feel the pen in my hand, the little thrill I got watching those numbers climb. 8,000, 40,000, 120,000. There was something almost sacred about it. Like I was building a cathedral, one brick at a time. And I was proud. I mean, genuinely proud. I was a woman in corporate America in the late 70s, and I was outperforming men twice my age in retirement savings. That meant something to me. But here's what I wasn't writing down. I wasn't writing down that my daughter Emma had a school play in April of 1989. And I missed it because I was closing a deal in Philadelphia. I wasn't writing down that my mother called me 3 Sundays in a row, and I let it go to voicemail every time because I was prepping Monday's presentation. I wasn't writing down that I ate lunch at my desk for so many years that I forgot what it felt like to sit in a park and just breathe. I was the responsible one. Does that sound familiar? The one who always had a plan, always had a number, always knew exactly how many years until freedom. Except freedom was always later, always next year, always after the next promotion, the next bonus, the next milestone. I told myself I was building something, And I was. I just didn't realize what I was demolishing in the process. My husband David, God rest him, he used to say, "Margaret, you're going to be the richest woman in the cemetery." I would laugh. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He saw something I refused to see. He watched me come home at 9 o'clock at night, eat cold leftovers standing over the sink, and go straight to the computer to check my portfolio before bed. He watched me cancel our anniversary dinner 3 years in a row because something came up at work. Something always came up at work. And I justified it every single time. I told myself I was doing this for us, for our future. But whose future was I really building? Because David died at 68, 3 years into our so-called golden years, and he never got to enjoy a single dollar of what I saved. By the time I hit 50, I had this beautiful, pristine 401k, a solid social security projection, and a body that was starting to whisper. Not scream, whisper. My right knee started aching after long days. I ignored it. My sleep got worse, these shallow, restless nights where I'd wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about quarterly targets. I ignored that too. I had friends I hadn't called in years, women I used to laugh with, cry with, share everything with. I told myself I'd reconnect later, after retirement, when I had time. You know what's funny? I tracked every single dollar of my financial portfolio with obsessive precision, but I never once tracked my health portfolio. I never once sat down and said, how many good, strong, energetic years do I have left? Because if I had, the math would have terrified me. I hit 60 and my doctor told me my blood pressure was too high. My cholesterol was creeping up. My bone density was declining. She looked at me and said, "Margaret, your body is aging faster than it should." And I remember thinking, well, that's fine. I'll deal with that in retirement. 5 more years, just 5 more years. I was so close to the finish line I could taste it. But here's the thing nobody tells you about the finish line. Your body doesn't wait for your retirement date. It has its own calendar, and it doesn't care about your 401k. Meanwhile, my health insurance premiums were climbing every year. I remember sitting at that same kitchen table, the one where I used to write my 401k numbers with such pride, and realizing that my premiums were rising faster than my portfolio gains. I was literally paying more and more money to maintain a body I was actively destroying through stress and neglect. That's the invisible tax, not the one on your income, the one on your flesh and bones, the one you pay with years you'll never get back. And I kept thinking, Medicare kicks in at 65. I just have to make it to 65, as if 65 was some magic door I'd walk through and suddenly be healthy and free and full of energy. Can you imagine? I spent my whole life optimizing for a date on a calendar, not a state of being, a date. I retired at 65, right on schedule. My 401k was over $1 million. My social security payments were strong. On paper, I was a success story. I had beaten the game. And you know what I did with that freedom I'd been chasing for 40 years? I deferred it. again. I told myself I'd travel next year, once I got settled. I'd call my son Michael. We'd been distant for years, but not yet, not until things felt right. I'd start exercising, start painting again, start living. Tomorrow, always tomorrow. I was 65 years old, and I was still postponing my life. The habit was so deep, I didn't even recognize it anymore. Saving wasn't just something I did with money, it was something I did with everything. I saved experiences for later. I saved conversations for later. I saved joy for later. Like it was a commodity I could stockpile. Then Carol died. My best friend, Carol. She was 71, same as me at the time. Carol did everything right, just like me. Maxed out her retirement accounts, lived below her means, planned meticulously. She had a list of things she was going to do. She was going to go to Italy. She'd been talking about Florence for 20 years. She was going to reconcile with her sister. They hadn't spoken in a decade over some argument neither of them could fully remember. She was going to learn to play piano. She was going to. She died on a Tuesday, a stroke, quick and silent. And she never went to Italy. She never called her sister. She never touched a piano. I went to her funeral in a black dress I hadn't worn in years, and I had my notebook in my purse. I don't even know why I brought it. Maybe it was a reflex, this thing I'd carried with me for so long, it felt like part of my body. I sat in that church pew, and I pulled it out, and I opened it, and I looked at 40 years of numbers, 40 years of quarterly balances written in my own hand, page after page after page. Not a single memory, not a single moment, not Emma's first steps, not David's laugh, not the way the sun looked over the harbour that one evening in 1992 when everything felt, just for a second, perfect. None of it was in there, just numbers, just money talking to itself in a little leather book. I'm not proud of this. I felt something break inside me at that funeral, not dramatically, quietly, like a thread that had been holding everything together just finally gave way. I went home that night and I pulled up my 401k statement online, $1.2 million. And for the first time in my life, it meant nothing. I stared at that number and I felt nothing. Because I finally understood what it had cost me. It cost me my daughter's childhood. It cost me my marriage. David and I were technically together until he passed, but we were roommates for the last 15 years, if I'm honest. It cost me friendships. It cost me my health. It cost me decades of mornings I could have spent walking by the river instead of sitting in fluorescent light. That's compound interest nobody talks about. The compound loss of unlived life. So here's what I call the invisible wealth rule, and I want you to hear me clearly. You have 3 accounts, not 1, 3. The first is your financial account. That's your 401k, your savings, your investments. It's the only one anyone ever talks about. The second is your physical account, your health, your energy, your body's ability to walk, to dance, to travel, to make love, to pick up a grandchild. And the third is your relational account, the people you love, the people who love you, the conversations you haven't had, the forgiveness you haven't offered or asked for. Here's the invisible part. Your financial account can grow over time. That's the miracle of compound interest, and it's real. But your physical account and your relational account, they depreciate every single day. They are declining assets, and no amount of money can buy them back once they're gone. You cannot purchase a new knee with the same certainty you can purchase a stock. You cannot buy back the years you didn't spend with your children. You cannot write a check to a dead friend and say, "I'm sorry I never called." I was 71 when I understood this, and I decided I wasn't going to waste whatever time I had left. At 72, I booked a flight to Portugal. I'd never been to Europe, 40 years of earning, and I'd never left the country. I went alone. I sat in a little cafe in Lisbon, and I drank coffee, and I cried. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming sensation of being alive somewhere beautiful, and realizing how many years I'd stolen from myself. I called my son Michael. That was harder than any deal I ever closed in my career. I mean, this was a man I had hurt through absence. I wasn't a bad mother in the obvious ways. I never yelled, never hit, never forgot birthdays. I just wasn't there. I was there physically sometimes, but my mind was always at the office, always on the next quarter, always somewhere else. And he felt it. Children always feel it. We talked for 2 hours. I didn't make excuses. I just said, "I'm sorry, I chose wrong." And he said, "Mum, I've been waiting 30 years to hear you say that." That sentence cost me nothing financially. It was the most valuable thing I've ever spent. I started walking every morning. Not power walking, not training for a marathon, not trying to hit 10,000 steps on some app. Just walking, slowly, deliberately, like a woman relearning how to be in her own body, through my neighborhood. I notice things now I never noticed before. The way the light comes through the maple trees on Elm Street around 7 in the morning. The elderly couple 2 blocks over who sit on their porch every day holding hands. A world that was always there, always beautiful, that I was too busy optimizing to see. I'm not preaching. I want to be clear about that. I'm confessing. I'm 75 and I have maybe, 5 or 6 good years left? Maybe more if I'm lucky. Maybe fewer. I don't know. Nobody knows. And that's exactly the point. You don't know either. You don't know if you'll get your 30 years of retirement or your 7. You don't know if your body will carry you to 80 or betray you at 68. So here's what I want you to do. Not for me, for you. Take out a piece of paper tonight, not a spreadsheet, paper, and write down 3 numbers. How much money do you have saved? How many healthy, active years do you honestly think you have left? And when was the last time you told someone you love them and meant it with your whole chest? If the first number is large and the other 2 are small or blank, you are me at 60. And I'm telling you, woman to woman, person to person, you are running out of an asset that no financial advisor will ever mention in a meeting. Time is the only currency that never comes back. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose your health and sometimes recover a piece of it. But time only moves in one direction, and it is moving right now while you watch this. while you sit at your desk, while you tell yourself you'll start living next quarter. I still have my notebook. I keep it on my nightstand now, but I don't write numbers in it anymore. Last week I wrote, walked by the river, saw a heron, called Emma, she laughed so hard she snorted, made soup from scratch, first time in years. That's my portfolio now, and it's the richest I've ever been.